Today we will explore and learn how to use fill and stroke effectively in Inkscape. Without further hesitation, let's get started. Okay guys, so from our previous lesson you should be already familiar how to draw a shape and select a color, so I will just do that right now. And if you don't know how to do that, you can do it to check out our previous lesson under this playlist to see how you can draw and select a color to a shape. So now I just drew a square, or sorry, a rectangle. So to open the fill and stroke menu, there are two ways to do that. You can come down to this down panel where it says fill and just double click. It will display the fill and stroke menu bar here. Another way to do that is to just right click and then you go to fill and stroke. You can see the shortcut here, shift plus control plus F, then it will open the fill and stroke menu. You can just type shift control and F on your keyboard. It will open your fill and stroke menu. Let's start with the fill aspect. So here we currently have the flat color selected. Flat color is just a plain color on the shape or object you have selected. So you can play around with the color. You can play around with this bar here to change from different color selected. So the color style we are using here is HSL, which is basically hue, saturation and lightness. Then there's this A here, which is alpha or opacity. It's a default segment in Inkscape for all the color style you have selected. They all have this alpha or opacity, which is basically used to reduce or increase the opacity of the shape you have selected. So when I dial it down all the way down, it will reduce the opacity to 0 and it will be so transparent that the shape would disappear. So I have to select the shape again and increase the opacity back. So there are different color style that you can select here. There is HSV, which is hue, saturation value. We have RGB, red, green, blue and so other ones. So for this video I'll just be sticking to the HSL. Also there's a color wheel here. You can click on this arrow to open it up. You can play with this color wheel to change from varieties of color. And also if you have, for instance, another shape, let's say this has a different color. If you have another shape or another object, or basically just a picture that you imported into your workspace, you can use this eyedropper tool here to pick a certain color from that object, shape or image. So once you click the eyedropper, you can place it on the color you want to copy. So once you click on it, the other shape will change its color to that color which you just selected. Also, if you have a hex code you are working with, you can head over here and just type in the hex code you have. So I'll just hit 0 all the way down, which is color black. That's the hex code for black. Just 0 all the way down, that is the hex code for black. So when I click the hex code here, the color will change. So if you see a hex code online or someone sent you an hex code, you can copy and paste it here to impute the color into your shape or your object. So that is basically it for the flat color aspect. So now we will be heading over to the next part, which is linear gradient. Linear gradient is just the blending of two colors linearly. So it's the intersection of two colors linearly. So let me just click on it to see what it does. So by default, Inkscape have made the other part of the color to be transparent, so it will just transparently blend, and it may seem as white here because our background or our canvas is actually white. That's why it seems as if it's joining both this color we have selected and white together, but that's not the case. Once I move it down here, you see that it's actually just transparent. There's no secondary color to it, but you can add your secondary color to it. So this is our default color here, and this is meant to be the secondary color. So I can just click and select a different secondary color. So I will increase the transparency here up to 100. That is it. So, and I've selected two colors. So you can see we are basically blending two colors together to meet linearly at the middle point here. Or let me make the first color red, and the second one, let me give it a bright blue. So we are blending red and blue together. Sorry. Okay, so we are blending red and blue together. So this is actually the red color, and this is blue, and this is their meeting point, which is blended here. So there is also a gradient tool in Inkscape, which is this. So you can see it, create and edit gradient. So this is where we can make a lot of editing to this gradient. So you can see the shortcut in bracket G. You can hit G on your keyboard, or you come to the toolbar here and click on the gradient tool. So you can see that the line here is linear, and this is the red part and this is the blue part. So you can actually move the blending option. So you can move it down, you can rotate it, you can make it vertically, or you can just make it diagonal like this. So that's how you edit. You can also add more points to your linear gradient. You can make it 2 or 3 color. Let's make this a green. So you can see we have blue, green and red blended together. And also you can, let's delete that. Also you can move the gradient. You can make red to be more dominant, having more space, while the blue is just little there. And same way you can reduce the red back and increase the blue. So that's how you do your linear gradient, and you can rotate by just moving this circle tool around, and you can increase and just reduce also, just like you did from this option. Also, once you just have a shape clicked on without opening the fill and stroke, once you have your gradient tool selected by clicking on it, or you click on G on your keyboard and you just drag on the shape, it will automatically have a gradient. I know by default the gradient is just transparency, so you can still open the fill and stroke and select another color for the other part of the gradient. And once you select the color, do remember to dial up the transparency up to 100 so that it will be more visible. So that is it about the gradient tool on Inkscape. And the next one here is radial gradient. Radial gradient is also a gradient tool, but instead of meeting linearly, it's starting from the middle as a form of a circle. So let me hit on this gradient we have already, and we change it to radial. You can see that the red color is actually starting from the middle, and the blue is at the outside part. And this other thing I forgot to mention, you can flip the gradient. From our linear gradient, you can see that the red is at the left hand side while the blue is at the right hand side. So we can switch this by hitting the flip or reverse the direction of the gradient. Once you click on it, you can see that the blue is now on the left while the red is now on the right. Same thing also for the radial gradient. You can flip it and make the blue to be outside while the red is inside. Also, once you click it again, you can see that the red is outside while the blue is inside. Same way, we can also change the color of the gradient here. So let's make this a bright color. And once you click on our gradient tool here, which is G, or we come to our toolbar here to select it, you can also do some editing. This will adjust the height of the radial, we make it go up a little, and this other circle here we adjust the width. That is, it will increase it horizontally while this other one will increase it vertically. So once you click and drag, you see that it's increasing but horizontally. Once you reduce it, you can see that the radial gradient is reducing horizontally. So this will increase and reduce horizontally while this other one will reduce and increase vertically. You can also rotate the gradient just like you did on the linear one. You can rotate and just play around with it. So the next one here, we have a mesh gradient. The mesh gradient, unlike the linear and radial gradient, help you combine varieties of color together, but not just combining them. It also allows you to select a specific point on the shape where you want a particular color to be, and it will just mesh everything together. So once you click on the mesh gradient, by default the secondary color you will be getting is actually white. So this one is not the transparency, so it's just white color, and the other color you have initially for the shape. So when you look here, there's not much settings to do here because there's actually a gradient tool on Inkscape. So you head over to your toolbar, just below the gradient tool you will see the create and edit mesh. So once you click on it, you will have something like this. So this actually showing you the point where colors can be selected. This will allow you to edit the lines to make them curved, and yeah, you can make the line curve with this point here, but this other point here at the four corners of the edges, this is where the colors are actually. So this point here is having a white color. So once I click on this point and I select another color, you see that the whole of that point has changed to that color. So I'll click the other point at the other end, and if I select another color, you see that it has changed to another color. So you can do that for the four corners of the shape. Just select different varieties of color and it will just mesh them together. So I say that it allows you to select a specific point where you want a particular color to be highlighted. What if I don't want the colors to be at the edge and want another color at the middle of the shape? So I'll just come over here to about the middle of the shape, and I will make sure that I still have my mesh tool selected. So you see a square with squares on the corner and a plus icon. So that is your mesh tool. So you go to the point where you want a particular color to be, and you place the plus sign on that point and you double click. So you see that it has created another line here which you can actually use to select another color. So once you click that line here, you can actually just go ahead and select another color, and there you have it, you have another color. So you see that this part that is selected, these three arrows here, are actually the area where the color is going to fit. You can see that this purple I just selected, I've occupied this area here because that's where the area of the line I just inserted covers. So if I want another one beside it, I also would just double click, and when I double click, I select another color. Sorry, I have to click on the points up there, then I select another color. You can see that part of what the purple was occupying has been taken over by the line I just inserted. So there's basically no limit to how many lines you can insert. You can just go ahead and be clicking and be inserting a lot of line. And just note that once you want to change a color on a line, you must make sure that you click this point here. Yeah, the head of this point here, you must make sure that it's clicked. If not, you will just change the entire color of the shape. So once you have that click, then you can click on a color to select. So that is it about the mesh tool. It's basically just meshing a lot of varieties color together, and you can just play around with it, select a particular point where you want the color to be, and that's just not it. You can't do that for circle alone. You can also do that for different kind of shape. Maybe you have a star inserted, you can also make the star to have a mesh fill. So just click on your mesh fill, so and you click on your mesh tool. You can see that the two colors that are mesh here are the basic color and the white which I have selected, and you can select two or more lines together to give them same color simultaneously. So when I click on this line, I can hold shift on my keyboard to select multiple lines together, so that once I select a color, all these multiple lines will be having same color. So you can see all the multiple lines which I just selected have same color. Just like we did also on the rectangle, we can double click on any part to add a line. So we can double click on any part to add a line. So let me add a few lines here. Also, while holding down my sheet and clicking the head of that point, I will select all the lines I have just added to change their color. So holding down shift, I selected all the lines I just added, and let's select another bright color. Okay, you can see that I just gave that another different color. So you can see that you can not only do that with the rectangle, you can do that with the star also with the circle. You can also do that. Basically, different shape which you just created, you can actually make them to have a mesh feel, and you can play around with it, select different color at different points which you want the color to. I really love this mesh tool. It makes you able to customize whatever shape you have or whatever object you have with varieties of color. So that is it about the mesh tool. The next one here, we have the pattern, just basically inserting a random pattern on an object. So for this, let me draw a circle. So I have a circle now. So once I click on pattern, you can see that Inkscape has some default pattern on this circle. So this pattern here now is showing stripes and 1:1. That's the resolution of this stripes here. You can see that it is quite big. So once you click this drop down arrow, there are varieties of inbuilt default pattern here on Inkscape that you can select for. So there are stripes with white with different ratio. This one is 1:3. There are stripes with 1:10. Different kind of default patterns here installed on Inkscape. But unfortunately, once you have a pattern installed on Inkscape, you can't really do much changes to this pattern. Like, you can't change the color of this pattern. For instance, this pattern I have here is a default pattern on Inkscape, so I can't change the color. So I either use it as it is like this, or I create my own pattern. So you can also create your own pattern, thankfully, on Inkscape. And to do that, you just like insert a shape you would like to be the pattern. For instance, I want a star to be my pattern on the shape. So I'll just click on the create star and polygon tool, and I will just draw a star. So once you draw a star, don't forget to click your selection tool and you click on the star. You can adjust the size, the width of the star just as you want it to be on the pattern, or you can just draw it and later adjust the size. So once you have your object selected which you want to be the pattern, you just head over to objects on your window bar here, then you come down to object to pattern. So you head over to pattern. After heading over to pattern, to open another menu which says object to pattern or pattern to object. So you can do that both way. You can make an object to become a pattern, or a pattern to become an object. So let's try this. For this pattern we have, if it can actually become an object and we can make edits to it. So let's say pattern to objects. Okay, so no, it just brought out the stripe, so we can't actually edit it. So back to what we were doing. So we have our shape which we want to be the pattern selected. So we head over to object, patterns, object to pattern. So once you click object to pattern, automatically by default Inkscape have made this star a pattern, and you can see it here. The name of the pattern is pattern 32. So Inkscape will just create a random number attached to pattern to use to name your pattern. So unfortunately you can't change the name of this pattern, but the good thing is it will always appear top on the pattern menu. So the pattern you just created will always appear top, so you can easily see them. So now that we have created this star as a pattern, so to apply this star as a pattern to a shape, so let's say for instance we have a rectangle here and we want to insert the star pattern we just made. So we just click on it and open our fill and stroke menu. So we head over to pattern, so you can see that the pattern we just made here is fit into this shape, and you can see that the pattern here is quite big and is covering the whole of the rectangle we just made, which is actually not the idea we have for a pattern. So we can change the size of this pattern. So to change the size, we just click the edit paths by nodes, which is N in bracket, that's the shortcut. So it's just actually below the select and transform to edit paths by node. So I'll just show you how to reduce the size of this pattern using this tool. We'll also do a different video explaining more about what this tool can do later on in as the lesson progresses. So once you have that selected, you zoom out a bit and you will see that this shape actually have a two square and a circle, which we discussed in our previous video. We know what that does, but when you zoom out again, you'll see another square, another circle, and another X, which is the middle. So this here is for the square shape. This two square and circle is to edit the square shape, while this one's outside there is actually for the star, which is the pattern we have inside the shape. So this square here, we use that to reduce the size of our pattern, while this circle, we use that to rotate our pattern. So to reduce the size of our pattern, we just click on this circle here, and while holding down Ctrl, we drag it towards this X here to reduce the pattern. So I will just hold down my Ctrl, click on the square, and I will drag it towards this X. So you can see that as it's heading towards the X, the shape is reducing, and we are actually getting the main essence of our pattern. So that is it here, guys. We have made a pattern from a star. So anything we draw, we can basically use the star as the pattern. So when you click on pattern, you will have the star inside pattern, then you select this one we just made. So the same way we did this, we can also adjust the size of this circle. So that's it about making the pattern here. And I also say that the other circle there is used to rotate the pattern, which is this one here. So don't forget to change the size of a pattern or to rotate. You click on your edit paths by node tool, which is under your select and transform tool, to actually activate the edit part of the pattern. So that's only when you can see these other options here. Once you have just the select and edit tool, you won't see anything, but once you select edit part by node, you will see these other two options. So I say this circle here is used to rotate your pattern. So holding down your shift again and clicking and dragging the circle, you can see that you are actually rotating your star. So don't forget that you're rotating it around this X, because that X is actually the middle of your pattern. So everything around here, this square, this circle, and the X is for the pattern, while everything around here is for the square itself. So if I give the square a border or a stroke, you can see that it's having a black stroke. And if I try to move the circle here, you can see that I'm actually editing the square, not the pattern. So it's not affecting the pattern. The pattern is just seen as a fill here. So that is it, guys, on pattern. So now let's talk about the stroke. So let me clear my workspace a little bit. So let me delete this. I love the way the star is looking, so I won't delete the star. So let me delete this, and I would insert another square to talk about the stroke. So let me insert another square. So we are talking about the stroke here, so I will just remove the fill color here so we can see. When we head over to the next panel here, it is called stroke paint. Stroke paint is just like the color of the stroke. So we can select different color by playing with this bar here. For the stroke paint, you can play with this bar to select different color for the stroke. Just like we did on the fill, we can use the color wheel to select different color. We can use the eyedropper too. So it's just basically how to select color for the stroke. So the next one here is stroke style. So this is the width, that is the size of the stroke. When you click the plus button to increase, you can see the width of the stroke is increasing, and this here is the measurements units. So it's in millimeters, so you can use pixel, point, inches, whatever unit you are working with. And this here is the dashes. So you can see here it's just showing a straight line, and you can see the edges of your stroke are just straight. So once you click the drop down arrow, you can see different dashes. You can see this is a point, and you can spread out the points by selecting this one. Also, you can use this plus button to like rotate or move the points around the edges of the square. So let's leave this here like this, and you notice that once you select the dashes, you can actually adjust the pattern manually. So if I hit let's say 5 now, you can see that the dashes are now reduced. But let me just leave it a straight line for the stroke. And here we have markers. Markers are just like basically marking the point of the shape. So this marker here will mark the left hand side of the shape, which is this square here. So when I click on the marker here, you can see different things to use to mark a shape. You can use a arrow, so you can see at the top edges you have a arrow there. So you can use it. There are basically different shapes you can use as a marker to just mark the shape. It's just basically indicating the starting and the ending point of a shape. So you can also, this is for the left hand side, you can also set a marker for the middle. So can set a marker for the remaining edges. So that is it about the marker. You can also set the marker for the remaining of the edges, which is this middle one here. So once you select any marker, it will set a marker for the rest of the edges, while this is just for the ending point of the shape. So let me select a different marker here so you will see. So this is just for the ending point of the shape. So the real real usefulness of this marker, let's say for instance we have a straight line. So just to demonstrate what the marker really is used for, I'll just draw using the Bezier tool, which we'll talk about more on another video. But for this, just to demonstrate the use of this marker, I'll just draw a straight line. So once you have a straight line, you can use the marker to make this line to have an arrow head or an arrow bottom, whichever one you pick. So you can see this is the use of this marker. You can turn a just straight line that you just draw into a arrow having a pointed mouth and a round starting point. So that's the use of the marker. So I'll just Ctrl Z to remove all of this marker inserted here. So yeah, we have our marker, we have our join. So join is just actually the meeting point of the stroke. So this is the meeting point of all the strokes. So you can see here, if we click on this one, it will make the meeting point to be flat. So just as you see, this edges now is flat. It can be curved, which is rounded. It is really smooth, and it can also be sharp, just pointed sharp like that. That for a circle, because a circle doesn't have a meeting point. So for instance, if you have a circle and you select this, there will actually be no changes because they have no meeting point. It is all curved. So but any shape with a meeting point, you can actually adjust the edges. You can make it straight, flat, you can make it curved, or you can just make it pointed like this. So we have caps. Cap is just like the just an extension of these joints here. So you can make the cap sharp. Cap is just basically for an open shape or for a straight line, which I just draw here. I will just draw a straight line just for reference again. So when I have a straight line here and I make this cap to be curved, you can see that the other end of that straight line is curved because this one has no meeting point. It's just a single straight line. So we use caps for it, so you can make the beginning parts to be flat, curved, or you can just make it to be just beveled like the first one. So I'll just make it curved like this. So that's it for the cap. So the next thing under the stroke here is order. So you can see that the order of this first one here is fill first, then the stroke, then the markers. So let me insert a marker just for this to demonstrate this. Let me make all of the edges to have a marker. Okay, yeah, we have marker for the 3 edges. Let me also add marker for the last edge here, which is the first part, and let's give this a fill color. So you can see that this order we selected is the order of the arrangement of this. So the first thing that will go from this order here, the fill will go, then the stroke, which is the outline, will be on top of the fill, then the markers will now be on top of the stroke. But the other order here says the stroke will come first, then the fill will be on top of the stroke, then the marker will be on top of the fill. So when you click that, you can see that it looks as if the stroke just reduced its size, but no, the fill just came out and come on top of the stroke, while the marker is now on top of the fill. So the next one here, it will take the fill first, then the marker, then the stroke. So let me make this marker another shape with a different color. Okay, let me just use this square so that we can actually see the changes that is going on here. So the next one here says the fill will come first, then the marker, then the stroke. So let me see, let me select another different color for the fill so that we'll see the arrangement very well. So if you click on this one here, you can see the fill actually goes first, then the marker was on top of the fill, then the stroke. That's why you can see that it looks as if the fill here has a cutout, but no, it's just the way it is being ordered. The fill goes first, then the marker, which is the yellow with the other outline background, came on top of the fill, then the stroke came last. That is the order. So the next order here is marker first, fill, then stroke. So once I click this, you'll see that our square shape of the fill will actually come out. So you can see our marker is now behind, then the next thing that comes was our fill, then our stroke. So you can just play around with the order to select the one that best suits you. So this one also will make the stroke first to come first, then the marker next, then the fill. So you can see that the stroke came first, then the marker has now covered the stroke, then the fill has now come on top of every other thing. So you can play with these orders to have different varieties of shape just as you like. So that's it about this lesson. You really have to practice this yourself, play around with these different tools and settings we have talked about to really have an understanding of your own, and maybe discover new tricks that you can use in your next design. So that's it for this lesson on fill and stroke. If this lesson was helpful to you, do well to hit the like button and share to another person that may be helpful to. And also please subscribe to this channel. Let's get to 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.